Hi, I'm Becky Meagher, and welcome to Transitions, Body, Mind, Spirit. Transitions. We have so many transitions in our life. I'll tell you, we have transitions when we're born, transitions when middle school and high school, and I like to use the metaphor of transitions in triathlons, something I've been doing for 25 years. And in triathlons, the first thing you do is swim. And then you go to a transition area, you change, get on that bicycle and bike. And the next thing you do is you're back to the transition area and then you run. And that is a metaphor for what we do in our life. We have so many different things that we do. And I have a pioneer in the world of yoga, Jan Campbell, who we've done 2 other sets of shows in the past. And nowadays, we are happy to have Jan as a guest. And this also will be 2 shows. Today, we're doing her life, how she started in Nashville, Tennessee. And I have to say that it's amazing that she is still teaching. She's 91 years young and an inspiration. So Jan, welcome, welcome, welcome.
Thank you, Becky. It's so good to be back. Nice
Yes.
to be with you.
Yes. I know the second show we're going to show poses, but today we're going to learn more about your background, about the background of yoga in Middle Tennessee, and about how you all started. And you have the same yoga shop that's been there since 1983, did you tell me?
86.
86. All right. And you are still teaching?
Yes.
You still have some of the same people that started 20-some years ago?
I do.
Amazing, amazing. So let's get a little background on you. You were born in Mississippi.
Correct.
In the South.
Yes, in the deep South.
Doesn't
yes.
get more southern than that.
You're right close to the little town that I was born in. It's very close to Mobile, Alabama.
Okay.
So it was really south Mississippi.
Yes. And as a child, did you have any idea that you'd be doing teaching of a body movement at all? Was that a goal?
Not at all. I had no inkling, nothing. No.
So when you were in high school in Mississippi, what did you think you wanted to grow up to be?
Well, both of my parents were educators. My father was the superintendent of a school, and my mom taught English. And I sort of thought, well, I'll grow up just to be a teacher, and because I hadn't know anything else about any other professions really. I'd never heard of yoga, for heaven's sakes. But I was a cheerleader. I guess that was fun.
So cheerleader.
Yeah, and I loved that. That gave me some body movement. That was fun.
Aha.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're built like a cheerleader. You have that personality of a cheerleader.
Well, it was a fun thing to do.
Yes. And after high school, did you go to college at all?
I went to a little junior college in Mississippi, but I never went beyond that.
Okay.
So.
All right, so life happened and you fell in love, got married.
Exactly.
Had a couple kids, and your husband at the time was a minister?
Yes, he was a minister with the United Methodist Church, first in Mississippi and then in South Carolina in the Greenville area.
Okay.
And that's kind of how we got to Nashville, in that a plane crashed with several United Methodist people on board from the New York office and the Nashville office, and they needed someone to fill those positions, and so he was asked to come to Nashville to be one of the executives with the United Methodist Communications, which is still up on 12th Avenue.
Yes.
So
yes.
that's how we got here.
That's how you got to Nashville.
Uh-huh.
Okay, so here you are in Nashville in the 80s?
No.
Or before that
Yes. No. We moved to Nashville in 1959.
59.
Yeah,
Wow.
so we've been here a long time. My youngest child was born in January of 1960 at Vanderbilt. So
Okay.
that's how far back we go
Wow.
with Nashville.
So where did this yoga come to you in Nashville? How did this come about?
Well, I'd never heard of yoga, and I was on a trip with my husband, a business trip somewhere, and Lilias Folan was one of the pioneers who did a television show on yoga. And I was in the hotel room, and I was watching television, and she was doing a yoga show, and I was totally captivated. I loved it, but that didn't take me anywhere. So, but I knew that looked like so much fun.
Wow.
And I can't remember when I took or why I took my first yoga class, but I think it was probably with Robbie Williams, who was really one of the first yoga teachers here in Nashville. And the love of it then grew out of that and expanded, and I became quite obsessed with it in that I wanted to learn everything. I wanted to take classes. I wanted to study with a lot of different people, so I did. I started traveling to different cities and different countries. I would go to Italy and study. I went to India 4 different times and studied for a month at the time there.
That's dedication.
And well, it is, and it's just passion mostly. I felt a little greedy actually, but I knew it's what I wanted to do. But I never dreamed of teaching it. I just wanted to be a student. So the teaching it just kind of evolved.
So over the years, you go, I love yoga so much, I'm going to go to Italy and go to, was it workshops?
Yes, usually week-long workshops. The India experience was month-long.
Okay, I remember hearing about you going to India, and tell us about, it wasn't like luxury doing this. Tell us what that was like.
Well, my first trip was in the late 80s, I think maybe 89. And at that time, nothing was computerized. Everything in India at the airport was to give as many people as possible a job. You went for one desk for one little thing, then you went to the next desk and the next desk and the next and the next. And you got off the plane, right there in the middle of the airport, and very often there were cows on the airport and cow excrement on the airport. So sometimes our luggage would have to be cleaned before we could use it again. So it was quite primitive, primitive. No air conditioning, no air conditioning in the studio, no screens. There were flies. There were. It was hot.
Did Mr. Iyengar?
Yes.
Tell us about Iyengar yoga. Is a whole specialization.
It's a lineage. It's a family lineage. So the lineage goes back. He's the first of that lineage. But he studied with a yoga teacher named Krishnamurti, who trained the 3 top teachers in the world at that time. And they wound up with very different kinds of teaching. But the method that he taught appealed to me, and so I studied with him, and then with his daughter and his son. When he began to get older, he would be there for his practice, and he would very often step in and take over a class when he felt like it, and they would, of course, defer to him. So I feel so fortunate to have had some experience with him before he finally passed away. Not too long ago, actually.
Oh, wow.
He lived.
So he
yes.
lived a long life.
Yes, Yes, he did.
Wow. Well, Iyengar yoga is a specialization, and that's what you teach, right?
Yeah, in a way, it has some specializations, and I do teach some of those now. It's very holistic, it's therapeutic, it different in that he introduced the use of props. I think he introduced yoga mats like the ones we use now, wooden blocks. They're now plastic mostly, but wooden ones. I have lots of wooden ones. And straps, ropes, wall ropes. I'm not sure that was strictly Iyengar, I don't think so, but a lot of different things that would assist a beginner in doing some of the poses that can be very difficult for people who are stiff. They can't just go into the poses. And in the demonstration later, hopefully you'll get to see how some of that works.
So the Iyengar method made it more accessible to regular folks. And you were enchanted by that particular thing, it sounds.
I was.
And you went to these month-long yoga retreats in India. And when did you decide, well, I'm going here, why don't I teach it? How long did that take?
I didn't really make that decision. It was made for me. I still was I was happy just being a student. But I think I was selling real estate at the time, and I was a little disenchanted at that time. I don't know whether you remember this or not, but back in the 70s and early 80s, interest rates were 15, 16, 18%. Nobody in their right minds was buying a house at that time unless they just had to. And so I thought, I don't think I want to do this the rest of my life. And somebody came to me and said, would you teach a yoga class for us? And I said, I don't know how to teach. And they said, well, you know more than we know. And I went, well, that's a thought. That's probably true. So I taught one class, and it went rather well. And I came home and told my husband, I said, well, I taught him everything I know. So that was one class. But somehow I was kind of drafted then into teaching more and more. I didn't have a studio at that time, but anyway, that's kind of the way it started.
Wow.
Yoga sort of came to me at that point.
Because you were so enthusiastic, and people are saying, well, you know more than I do. Please show me how to do this.
Exactly, yeah.
Wow.
So,
and then didn't you have to take classes to be a, quote, teacher?
Absolutely.
So that's a level this, level that.
Then I had to take more classes and go into a teacher training to be certified. And I thought, if I'm going to do this, I want to do it right, and I want to do it well. So Iyengar, I think, has probably the best teacher training of any of the other systems that I know about anyway. So that's how I began to, I don't think I would have been a yoga teacher if I had not discovered the Iyengar method, because when I first started teaching and I looked at the people that were coming to me off the street, and I didn't know how to help them. I just knew they couldn't do what I could do. I just had a sort of naturally flexible body, and for people that didn't have, and if I hadn't had the props available from the Iyengar system to help me know how to work with these people, I would have had nothing to offer them.
Oh, wow.
At least I felt that way.
Yes, yes. So you found the right system for the everyday person who wasn't blessed with a totally flexible body because they were born that way.
I was always eager to find a really stiff body because they are the most appreciative people, and they stay with it because they know they need it. People with flexible bodies sometimes will take a class or two and say, oh, well, I've done that now. I think I'll go to something else, which is fine. But those stiff people, they're your best students.
Wow.
They're loyal, they're appreciative. It's great. I love beginners.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, in your starting to do this, I understand that you didn't have a studio, but you went to like one of the, like a YMCA type of place.
Well, no, I never did that. Let me back up.
Okay.
At the time, the studio that I now use was a conference room for my husband's offices. He had
Wow.
a business, and we lived in an apartment at that time, sort of in between houses, because we bought this other building in Berry Hill. And so I would just use that conference room. So I had a space, but it didn't have hardwood floors. It had carpet, which is not the best for yoga. And it didn't have any props or anything. So that's where I would teach. So it was not quite like having to teach in a church basement or someplace like that. You couldn't teach in a Y because they wouldn't let you at that point.
Aha. And so I think we had talked about when you first tried to get yoga out there, there was a pushback. A lot of people and maybe religious facilities, churches or whatever, might think it's not appropriate.
I think there was the fear more than anything else.
Fear. Because
of it being some kind of cult that people would be lured into. And, you know, healthy skepticism is not a bad thing. But fortunately now that has been dispelled, and to a large degree, even in the really conservative churches, I think there's an understanding that yoga is more of a philosophy than anything else. It's really not a religion. It's a philosophy. And that's not nearly as scary.
Yes.
It doesn't conflict with whatever your religion might be.
Yes. So when did you expand what is presently your studio? Didn't you expand it from this little tiny room to
No, I never expanded. Yeah, well, somewhat.
Yeah.
My husband's business was bought by a large corporation, and he moved his business into their big business, which was on White Bridge Road, right there at that busy corner of West End. And there's a brick building there. It used to, you know, be on the corner. So that left us with this space. And so when I decided that I wanted to teach and I would like a studio, then we built a waiting room area, and there was already a bathroom and a big room that would work. So we took out the carpet and put in hardwood floors. I put in wall ropes, and there was a big storage closet which worked for a prop closet. So fortunately, I didn't have a lot of things to do.
And
to
you
get
lived
ready.
there too.
And then we moved into that place.
Okay.
And that made it even easier because I
Okay.
didn't have to go anywhere.
Wow. So you became a full-time yoga instructor.
Right.
With your own place.
Right.
And I believe you had a friendly, your marriage dissolved, but you
Right.
Had a friendly dissolution, as we say, and you kept on having this wonderful space that you
Right.
could do your classes.
Right.
So
Yeah.
you've
He
continuously
actually moved out of town, moved to Florida, so
Okay.
that worked well.
Yes. And you married Peter, who is an amazing psychotherapist
did.
and men's group person. And
Peter was actually one of my students
well,
for years. And so that sort of came about slowly and developed from friendship. And here we are,
Yes.
20 years later.
20 years later,
Yeah.
bravo, bravo.
Yeah.
Yeah, wow. So right now, what do you want to tell people or all these years that you have been teaching it, what do you want to tell people about, should they take a yoga class? Should they go to the Y? What do you recommend to people?
Well, I would be quick to say that yoga is probably not for everyone, and not every kind of yoga is for the same person. I would say that I would do some homework before I went to a yoga class and try to find out about what the class is like, what the instructor's like, how much training they've had, if I had any kind of physical difficulties, like maybe glaucoma, high blood pressure, arthritis, things that can afflict any and all of us at some stage. Then I would like to find out if this teacher is knowledgeable in how to work with people that need to be able to modify poses, that kind of thing. Because safety, I think, is so important in a yoga class, any class that's physical. Yeah. There should be considerations for safety. So that I would definitely want people to check out before they sign up automatically.
I used to do hot yoga. What's your opinion of hot yoga?
I think hot yoga is really fun for young people, or maybe people in high school and college that like to sweat and feel really high after a sweating. I'm not sure it's really good for older people as our bodies change. I would not suggest it because getting too hot might not be just the best thing for you.
But doesn't it kind of make you more flexible, the heat?
Anytime the body is warm, the muscles will stretch nicely. That can be a danger signal. You can overstretch a muscle, and if you don't balance your flexibility with your strength, and this is what I like to teach in my classes, is the balance between the strengthening that yoga gives you and the flexibility, so that then you have health when you come to that balance. My problem with hot yoga is that it's all about stretching, but
not strengthening.
But where does the balance come between how to strengthen the body in a healthy way to be able to be strong and flexible at the same time?
Yes.
It's a kind of like working with a set of opposites. You're asking the muscles not only to contract, but to lengthen. That's tricky.
And I believe you became a teacher of people who wanted to become teachers, right?
Well, I did do teacher training here for a long time because I was the only one who had the certification high enough to be a yoga teacher, a teacher trainer.
An instructor, so you became an instructor. And I know there's quite a few, like a lot of the Ys and whatnot, the people teaching, you were their teacher. So
true, yeah.
There's a legacy from you starting years ago when it was considered voodoo to now it's in so many of the different exercise places, from the Ys to churches to whatever, and you have a legacy of teaching people and being a pioneer here, really.
I hadn't really thought of it that way, but I think there's some truth in that. That is no longer true, and I'm really happy about that. And I have turned the teacher training over to my younger counterparts, and they're doing a great job with it.
Well, you inspire me that you are 91 years old.
Right.
You are still teaching. Yeah, I think you said your chiropractor said you had an amazing spine, which I envy.
That was just 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, there you go. And how do you see your future? I believe you're going to take a trip.
Okay. My future, I just assess that from time to time, year by year. I don't really know where I'm going. As long as my body and my mental facilities will allow me to keep doing this, and as long as my students will keep coming and I can give them something and then have that come back to me in a gift. So I think it needs to be a give and take relationship. As long as I think if I keep doing it, it has to give something back to me. And I get great joy out of teaching and out of the community that my students provide. And they in turn get that community from one another. And so we're happy with that right now. If that changes in any way, I may have to reconsider. And you know, that's okay. Right now,
you plan on going to Africa, I believe?
yeah, in September, Peter and I are going to do a wildlife safari in Africa.
Yes.
We'll be gone about 2.5 weeks, and we're really excited about that.
You know, and there's an attitude of youth that you have, in addition to your body, that mental, youthful part of still going, still exploring, being able to be young.
Yeah,
Yes.
I think a lot of it is up here. It gets us in trouble sometime, you know. My mind says, oh, you're maybe 50, and then my body, I'll start to do something, and it says, no, you're not. So there is a certain vulnerability that happens as you age, and you begin to realize that you really do have to take better care of yourself than you used to. And hopefully I'll get a little wiser as I get a little older. I hope so.
Wiser? I mean, you're pretty wise at 91, I would say.
I hope so.
You know, and still teaching. And you, for all those folks who say, oh, I want to get taught by Jan Campbell, you are not taking new students, right?
No, that is not true.
Oh.
I am taking new students.
Oh, okay.
I get new students all the time. I've got new students coming on board, but I'm not, I do pass them along to other teachers if I feel like that's where they belong. Okay. I don't take really young people because I don't think I'm the teacher for them. I'm not the teacher that I was.
Yes.
And so I will refer them.
Yes.
And I'm
we
happy
need to wrap up here.
Okay.
But Jan Campbell, thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you,
and
Becky.
Tune in for the next show. Yay. All right.
Okay.